We have two that have signed up. We will start with Brian Patrick Farron.
All right, mic does not work. All right, good evening, everybody. My name is Brian Patrick Farron, and I'd like to talk about Gateway's first ever mini-thon. So many of you are probably wondering, what is a mini-thon? Mini-thon is based off of Penn State's thon, which is a 46-hour dance marathon held for pediatric cancer research. And all of the funds go towards pediatric cancer research. And so this foundation, the Four Diamonds Foundation, they decided, okay, this is a great idea. We're going to spread it across high schools in Pennsylvania. So they developed Mini-thon. And it is thon at the high school level, basically. So, Gateway, we've decided to take on the challenge of having a mini-thon this year. And I come to you tonight asking to use the sports complex for the mini-thon. The reasons why we need the sports complex instead of the old gym is because the sports complex, one, has a surround sound speaker system, which is vital for a dance marathon because of the music. It'll save us money because we won't have to spend as much money on a DJ. We can have teachers be the DJ if necessary. Also, I could simply just put in my iPod and play a playlist, and that'll be for the majority of the dance. But for the last 3 hours of the dance, we will be hiring a DJ, and that'll be for the nice and fun dance portion. Like I just said, it's a dance, so why is there a DJ for only the last 3 hours? Well, for the mini-thon runs from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. And those first 9 hours, it'll be sports activities and events. Like, we're going to have a volleyball tournament, and we're going to have dodgeball tournaments, and various fun games and activities for the participants. And so that's why we need the gym. The gym, it features a drop-down plastic divider in the middle. And we can use that divider we can double the space we can double the events at the same time. We can have a volleyball game going on at the same time as a basketball game, instead of in the old gym, which we'll be just using one event at a time. Also, safety concerns. It is easier for people to enter and exit the sports complex than the old gym, because if they come into the old gym, they'd have to go through the loading dock or maybe the main entrance or something like that. So I think it's safer that way. Another concern is bathrooms. The sports complex, it has multiple bathrooms we can use. There's multiple men and women's bathrooms. The old gym, there are bathrooms underneath for the gym classes. There's a bathroom down the hall to the right, which has 2 stalls for the men, and the nearest women's bathroom besides underneath is way down the other end of the hall by the theater. So I think it'll just be better for everybody if we use the new gym. We will be featuring, for the schedule for the mini-thon is, as you've already probably seen, first we'll have a registration from 9 a.m. to 10. Then we'll start off with Zumba, and we are having some participants, some volunteers, volunteer their services, and they will be instructing Zumba for an hour. Then we'll be inviting the preschoolers, the preschool class, to come up and have some fun, and that'll be featuring a bouncy house and some face painting. After that, we're going to have a faculty hour. So during the faculty hour, we're going to have teams of the faculty versus teams of mini-thon participants. So, like, I'll be playing against Mrs. Yuri, Mrs. Dudek. They don't got a chance. So, just letting you know. And, so that's going to be that hour. After that, it's just going to be kids versus kids. And this is where we really need the sports complex, because like I said, the divider in the middle, we can have more kids playing at the same time, and that's more fun all around. Community hour, After that, so we invite everybody in the community to come out, and maybe a small fee will be required or not. We haven't decided that yet. And they can come and stop by and see what Mini-Thon is all about. After that, karaoke, simple, for Diamonds families. So, the families that are affected by cancer, which is, I'm sure, almost everyone in this room has been affected by cancer in one way or another. We're going to have some families step up and tell us their story about how cancer has affected their lives and why Mini-Thon is so important to them. And then, for the last 3 hours of the event, the DJ and dancing. So, I think that the sports complex is the best place for this Mini-Thon. I think if we didn't have the sports complex, then it wouldn't be as exciting, as fun, and it wouldn't be as worthwhile. And that is it.
Thank you very much. You are on, so next 2 weeks from now, we should be voting on it. I don't see there being any problems.
All right.
Thank you. We also have, is Mr. Elms here? Is that about an agenda item or no? No. No, okay. Do we have anyone else that would like to speak about agenda items? No? Okay, seeing none, we will go on to ABM. Thank you.
My name is Eric Petrazio. This is Richard Phelps here on the right and Mark Turner on Richard's left. We're with a company named ABM. And we engaged discussions with Bob, Mr. Brown, probably about 8 months ago, where we shared with him a concept that your peers are using to help address infrastructural needs by harnessing the power of your existing operating budget and utilizing the tax base that your citizens are already providing you with. So this evening, we're going to share with you the concept and then share with you the steps in moving forward if there's a desire to move forward with this. So when we first sat down with Mr. Brown and Dr. Zeddy as well as Mr. Schott, we really uncovered that the school district in its current state was not where it desired to be. And we tried to show how you can utilize ABM to achieve that desired state. Today, we're going to talk about a couple of the trends that we see your peers dealing with in public schools, talk about some of the local challenges we've uncovered, share how your peers are using ABM's program to overcome this challenge, and at the end of today, I'll share with you the next steps in the process. So the reason that we're here today is really representative of this graph that you see here on the right-hand side, which is where revenues for the most part in public school systems are flat, while the demand on resources is ever increasing. And these are a host of the issues that school districts are dealing with: unfunded mandates, rising operating costs, declining or flat tax revenues. What we do as a company, ABM, helps to fund that gap, providing you with critical facility needs without increasing the burden upon your constituents by using the dollars they're already providing you with. And really, that brings us to why we sat down with Dr. Zeddy and Mr. Brown and Mr. Schott originally. And we recognize that Gateway has a decreasing population, about 1,500 kids over the last 10 or 15 years. We also understand that there's a 5-year capital plan with limited means to fund it. We also know that you're operating in a structural deficit, utilizing fund balance to help balance that budget on a yearly basis. And then we also understand that there's some facility needs that you had. So in sitting down with Mr. Brown and sharing with him a way that your peers are using ABM to address those challenges, and we're going to share with you what the program is. So what we use is Pennsylvania Act 39. It was created by the state because the state recognized that there was decreasing capital improvement funding, as well as aging assets. When we look at the majority of school buildings around Pennsylvania, they are 50 or plus years old. So we have these aging assets, yet we have limited ways to fund improvements. So the state of Pennsylvania created Act 39, which allows school districts to use it as a public funding mechanism. And the way that the program works are capital improvements are funding through the existing budget that you already have. So if your budget this year is $71 million, next year it will be $71 million. All you're doing is reallocating the dollars that you have in it more efficiently. Improvements are funded through the savings. These programs operate on a self-liquidating debt structure, meaning they pay for themselves. And the most important thing is that the savings are guaranteed on a yearly basis. I know a lot of you are familiar with this program, but this is the crux of how we help our clients, how we help your peers. So if you have any questions about the program, please don't hesitate to ask. I'll share with you an example of a funding process. So if we look at a school's operating profile, there's a lot of different cost centers within that operating profile. We see energy is really what we look at the preliminary stage. But our facility expertise allows you to take the dollars in that operating profile and then convert them into capital. Here's an example. So this is a client that we worked with, had about a $900,000 utility spend on a yearly basis. They also had about another $55,000 that they were spending every year on demand repairs, projects, small projects, those types of things. And this client actually had an annual debt service payment of about $325,000. This red line right here represents the public accounting barrier where you're not allowed to spend next year's budget. You can't encumber future budgets. What this legislation allows us to do is, by implementing some of the typical unfunded capital needs, ones that we see inside your capital plan, we're able to drive costs out. And what that looked like for this client was we drove out about $225,000 in utility expenditures. We drove out about another $17,400 through addressing some of the aging assets within their buildings. These are dollars they were spending to repair, to maintain, to keep these aging assets afloat. And then what they decided to do is, through refinancing with the low financing rates right now, they will actually generate another $15,900. So the way that works is it generates about $257,000 on a yearly basis. Now the way that this works is this way. You see $17,400 through repairs that they were spending on a repair basis, $15,900 they used to refinance, and then another $224,300 that they were spending in utilities. What that equals is $257,600. Over a 15-year term, that generates $3.8 million that this client could then go take and make repairs to their school district today. And then what happened was, ABM guaranteed on a yearly basis that they would have $257,600 to pay that debt service payment. And we guarantee those savings on a yearly basis. Does that make sense?
Can you speak a little to the guarantee and how it's backed?
Well, it's backed by a three-tier guarantee, actually. So the first one is when the system, there's no change orders. So unlike a typical construction project, there's no change orders with these programs. When we come to you with a final number, that final number has to be guaranteed. So if ABM were essentially to miss something, we would be responsible for paying that guarantee. The second guarantee is the systems have to work as designed. Typically, we see in a lot of construction projects where the engineer points the finger at the installer, and the installer says, no, you engineered wrong, and who's left holding the bag of money? It's the school district. With this program, the systems have to work as designed, because then the third guarantee comes into play, which is the yearly savings guarantee. If they don't work as designed, then you may not save the dollars that you're expecting to pay that debt service payment back, and then ABM will be legally responsible to write you a check to make you whole.
Maybe I'll expand on that question as well. The guarantee is in the form of units of savings, right? So there's two sides to the energy coin. There's what you spend per kilowatt hour, cubic feet of gas, and there's what you consume within your facilities. We don't control what you pay per kilowatt rate as well as for the gas, and you're involved in the consortium, so you're getting a very good rate on that side. What ABM affects is the consumption within your facilities. So by taking old inefficient assets and replacing with new efficient assets, we're able to quantify what that savings will be in kilowatt hours and cubic feet of gas, and then guarantee that to our clients on an annual basis. So the guarantee, while it has a numerical figure there in this example of $257,600, it would be in the form of 100,000 kilowatt hours and 1,000 cubic feet of gas. And that's how our guarantee is. So on an annual basis, as Eric mentioned, we pull utility bills for our clients and compare them post-project to what they were pre-project. And through that, we're able to verify that you're either seeing the savings, and any excess savings that are achieved goes back to the district and goes in your operating budget and is spent in different areas of your budget. If there's a shortfall, though, in this example, let's say you didn't see the $257,600, you only saw $250,000 in savings, ABM is then obligated to write you a check for that $5,600 to make you whole, because on an annual basis, in this example, you'd have a note due of $257,600 annually, and we need to make sure that you have those funds available to make that payment. Make sense? Did that answer your question?
Yep, that's one clarification. Thank you.
And how long has ABM been in business?
1909.
So over 100 years. So in preparation for tonight, Mr. Brown asked us to look at Ramsey Elementary. And what we did was we went into Ramsey Elementary and we actually put a little piece of equipment to monitor humidity, temperature, occupancy, lighting. So we measured a host of different things within the facility that really allowed to look at us the way the building was being operated. And actually what you see here is a snapshot of the temperature and humidity in one of the rooms. And I know it's really hard to see, it's really far off, but the majority of the thick black line is anywhere between 70 and I'd say 74 degrees. So what you have is a school that's being overheated. Not only overheated, but you can see how the line is very thick. That represents a significant amount of energy consumption and usage. What we would prefer to see is more of a gentle up and down. But what you see will be the equivalent of going down Route 22 as fast as you can and slamming your brakes on at every red light. So that's essentially what's happening in the building. The systems in the building are aging assets, so it's not operating as efficiently as it could. So when we looked at Ramsey Elementary, that was the first thing that we did. We looked at. We also looked at the assets that you had inside the building. So we looked at how the building was being operated, as well as what the assets were inside the building. Some of the things that we looked at were envelope. This is actually a crack in the door, and there's a significant amount of doors on that building, which lead to a lot of energy use. We also looked at things like outside lighting on. This lighting was on all the time, and it's actually on an older lighting control system. We looked at lack of insulation in some of the spaces inside the building. We looked at an outdated boiler that could probably shower 1,000 people. It's a humongous boiler. And then lastly, we looked at all these different things, and what we found out from looking at the utility spend from Bob, and he was very helpful with, is that you were spending about $123,000 a year in utilities. Now, we saw that Mr. Brown was doing a fine job with the assets that he had available inside that district, but as a result of their age and the way that they've deteriorated, it's very expensive to operate. So by implementing some of these energy conservation measures, we believe that you can drive out about $47,000 a year just out of Ramsey Elementary. And what that looks like, if you recall this slide from earlier, just in energy over a 15-year term, that generates over $700,000 of available funding. And that was just Ramsey. So what we're asking tonight, if this makes sense, we're asking for the board to authorize us to do a feasibility study on the remaining school buildings within the district to determine if you have a potential opportunity to address the needs that you have within your buildings. And we do this because we are a facility company. ABM, that's all we do is maintain, renovate, and operate facilities. Pennsylvania alone, we have over 4,000 employees that allows us to do so. Part of the reason these programs are so attractive right now is because the rate of dollars, they're so low right now. You can borrow money at near record lows, which allows your dollars to go a lot farther, which will allow the district to utilize ABM to get to that desired state. And this is actually the state process that we're required to follow. So if you look at the state process here, tonight we're at the concept meeting, and like I said, we're asking that the school board authorize us to go through and do a feasibility study to determine the opportunity that the district may have. That's the next step in this process. Questions?
So you get paid on the savings, some portion of the savings?
That's how we make our money, yes.
So if you go back to that slide that shows like the 3.8 figure that we had there for the sample client back here. So our fees are tied into that $3.8 million figure. So the energy and operational savings that we are able to drive out and help you address and reinvest into infrastructure within your facilities, our fees are tied into that. So the energy and operational savings has to cover that. We hope to make 10% on a project, but it very rarely occurs. Because, as Eric said, part of these projects is the fact it's backed by a 3-tiered guarantee, where firm fixed price, construction has to work as designed, and then the annual savings afterwards. Well, unlike you, where we can't come back to you with a change order, change orders and the unexpected occur in pretty much every single project we've ever encountered. There's always something that is unforeseen that we have to deal with. So unlike where we cannot come back to a change order for you, we have change orders that occur. So we're a publicly traded company. And as per the SEC, we have to supply our financials to the SEC for publication. Our annual report shows that we make between anywhere to 3 to 5%.
Is the savings only basically tied to utilities and/or
Could be a combination of
facilities
things.
of some, how's that?
So in this example here that we used earlier, the example is it can be utilities and/or operational savings. There are several areas that we look at, but at this point it's too early. So during the preliminary assessment, we'd be able to identify where all the funding sources are.
Can I ask a question, just sort of back up for a minute? So you come in, you do an analysis of the facility, the envelope, and the operating systems, the heating, the air conditioning, the electrical systems, so on and so forth. Then you replace those that are inefficient or not working properly, correct?
Well, in a nutshell, yes, but there's a lot more before that. What we're asking tonight is to allow us to go through. Oh, yes.
I'm with you on that. So you replace these inefficient operating pieces of equipment. And the cost of that equipment to the school district is paid by the savings that's generated.
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay, so do you anticipate, or would you say to the district after doing a more comprehensive analysis, that the savings that is pushed out will equal the cost of the payment plus?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so explain to me the plus.
We don't
Go back to this 47,000 on Ramsey.
So,
Okay,
so
for
looking
example.
at Ramsey, we don't guarantee 100% of what we expect our clients to see in the form of energy savings. Because if we did, then we'd be very much at risk. So there's always a little bit of a buffer there, per se. Any excess savings that are achieved at 47, so let's say that was your project that you went through the process and moved forward with. So we generated $705,000 in funding to you. Our expectations would be that your savings on an annual basis would be greater than that 47,000.
Okay.
And any excess savings is yours.
So are you able to, in your analysis, provide the board with what you would estimate the difference between, okay, I'm going to replace the equipment, that's going to cost X amount of money, X amount of money is going to be a derivative of the savings, that pays you guys, plus, let's just say,
Right, so what we'll do in our preliminary assessment, again, there's no cost for the preliminary
Right,
assessment, by the
right.
way. We're going to build basically a pro forma.
Uh-huh.
That's going to show a list of measures that we would take a look at.
Uh-huh.
We'll give you a rough idea of savings and/or cost.
Okay.
After that, it's another step where there's an investment grade audit where we can confirm fixed pricing. But to answer your question, yes, we're going to show you the costing, and at the end of the day, you're going to help us co-author this program. So you're going to be able to select the things that you want. In the final stage, we're actually going to put a menu of items so that you'll be able to select should you go to that point.
Okay.
But you'll know exactly what the costs are.
Right.
You know exactly what the finances are, and you know exactly if there's a positive cash flow back to your answer, if there's money coming back to the
Yeah.
school. You know what that is on the annual as well as a 50-year period basis.
so we replace a boiler, just hypothetically, yep, Ramsey, we have a boiler at Ramsey? Okay, so we replace the boiler, the boiler costs us $50,000. You guys install the boiler, make sure it produces the energy at the rate that you expected, the heat that you expected. And that $100,000 is paid for out of the savings?
Correct.
Okay, and that would apply to heating and air conditioning systems and
Yes.
electrical systems?
Everything we're going to touch, when we blend this, like, give you an example, some things have a quicker payback, some things have a longer payback. The uniqueness about this program, you're able to blend all those items
Right.
together to make a better payback.
Right.
So you're able to get, for example, the boiler, heating equipment, tend to cost more money.
Walk me through, okay? Walk me through, you're not really going to, you are going to project revenues at some point, but it's projected in, for example, kilowatt hours of usage.
We're going to take your rate of energy that you're currently paying, we're going to create a baseline.
Okay, so X number of kilowatt hours.
So yeah,
Ramsey.
to give you an example,
Yeah.
we'll have our engineers will come out, we'll create a baseline of your current usage.
Right.
Associate that with your current spend, that could be the new rates you're paying now. You'll agree to that baseline.
Right,
And then from there, we'll project the savings from usage units, TTU units, from that baseline. And then we'll associate the new cost based on, again, the numbers that you agreed upon that you're currently paying for energy. There'll be times where we'll escalate. So for example, I don't know what your contract is, but if your energy contract is 1 or 2 years, typically that may change. So there'll be a piece that will show, I think 15 years, we expect that to go up a little bit. So we'll create an escalation to value that you will agree with, and then we'll build your baseline.
So the kilowatt hour goes up and cost per kilowatt hour goes up in 2 years.
Yeah.
How do we make money on that then?
So it's not that you're making money, so what we're doing is we're reallocating the money you're spending with the utility.
Okay,
We're
yeah.
shifting it over here to do capital improvements. So you either pay the utility, in this example, it was
Yeah.
$47,000.
$47,000, yep.
For
Right.
Ramsey. You're either paying the utility $47,000 a year.
Right.
Or you're gonna take that money and reinvest it back into your schools.
Right.
And be more efficient. That cost is gonna cover the debt service. In some cases, it's a wash, it's neutral. In some cases, we get another program where you have excess funds coming in.
So if the cost of energy or gas went up dramatically,
You save more.
You'd save more.
You're gonna save more.
Okay. You have to walk me through that.
That's
Not now, because other questions.
I have a question. 2 questions for you. All right, so in that example that you put up there, basically, just to cut to the chase, I believe, is you're asking us to borrow $3.8 million. If we were
That was
that
you.
case,
That was you,
if
correct.
that was us, we're going to borrow $3.8 million, and we're going to pay back $257 a year.
Yep.
And that'll pay that 3.8 back.
Correct.
And we're gonna save that much money, basically, by the things that we improve. And at the end of 15 years, basically, we're gonna spend nothing to get a new boiler
Exactly.
and a new
And
window.
And you get the
new-
$257 a year after you're 15, that's gonna be continued saving.
Right, well, that's gonna actually fluctuate, because, which brings me to my next point, the second point of that, it's 3.8.
Right.
You determine this number, whatever that number is, and we're gonna do it for 15 years, is there a chance to adjust that number, change that number? Or should we be asking for everything that we possibly can at the beginning and see, you know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
is there a chance for us to go for $1.5 million?
Yes.
Or then $2 million in 10 years?
So the answer is yes to everything. So for example, if you decided that, hey, we want to do the entire $3.8 million program, that was your project, you can do that. Or there could be a phased-in approach where you decide, hey, right now we just want to tackle the 3 biggest issues, and you can add another phase at a later time. It's really up to you.
But there's no like restrictions on the act, whatever the act number was.
No, you can go up to 20 years. Typically, we don't recommend our clients going any longer than the useful life of an asset.
Right.
So if you're looking at a rooftop unit, 15 years.
I think he means, can you implement Act 39 twice?
Oh, yeah, you can get it anytime you want.
It's not like PlanCon where you get
Right.
once every 20 years. You could do this building this year, and next year, another building, and the following
Right,
year,
so
another
like if it was
building.
3.8, we could do like $1 million
Right.
every 2 years, and
You can.
then we'd be on some type of rotation.
Right, so you wanted to create, one of the things we talked about earlier is we have a program, and I won't get into all the details now, but it looks at your assets for a longer term, so you're able to build up capital improvement over a longer term. So you could do something like that. The only comment I would tell you, and this is what Eric brought up earlier, is with the finance rates being so low right now, this is actually a really great time to borrow the money. So,
2 more questions, real quickly. Who does the like engineering and/or construction
We
and
do.
all that stuff? So you guys do?
So our role in this is to design, engineer, procure, project manage, and commission. So it's a single point of accountability, which for the district, if there's any problem with anything, there's one organization that you look at and you avoid the finger pointing back and forth in terms of design and then install.
And that's all the cost in the 10% or whatever it is?
so we're basically designing for it.
Okay. So my next question would be, can you tell me some districts around here that maybe use you or use this problem?
Butler Area School District did a project, Mount Lebanon did, municipality of Mount Lebanon did a project, City of Washington did a project, Columbia County did a project, Wyoming County did a project. Those are just with us.
Fayette County Career.
Fayette County Career Technical Institute did a project. Northwest Area School District did a project. And I can keep going, maybe you would like.
But these programs are national, so though Pennsylvania has, I handle the East Coast for our company, we do these all over the country, all over the Northeast, we have tons of case studies. You're welcome to visit some of them if you like, but we have case studies that we can show you and show you the different programs.
The challenges facing schools are the same challenges facing cities and counties across the state.
So the rate for borrowing, okay. The rate for borrowing, is it fixed? Is it tied to LIBOR? Is it
Fixed.
overnight rate or something?
Fixed rate over 15 years.
It's fixed over,
Well, you
okay.
have options too.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of things you can do. I mean, it's really up to you and your financial
Uh-huh.
folks, but typically you can borrow the money through a tax-exempt municipal lease,
Uh-huh.
which can be fixed.
Okay.
With no issuance costs, where you can go and bond it, which is probably typically going to be doing, you might get a different rate.
I see.
But there's a lot of flexibility in how you finance these.
So you're not the finance officer?
We're not, but I tell you, we have a lot of project experience in relationships with banks and financial institutions.
Okay.
That we bring to you, but we did not make any money, nor do we profit from that, but we can assist you in the process.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, sir. I got a question for Mr. Schreider, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
Did you go over any of these figures, or do you see it being any negativity or any positive in it?
I started on just the initial conversation with this. I know there's been some other meetings in terms of looking at some specifics for that, but the overall general concept of the program, it's another means to be able to finance our projects that we have. Some of the things we had talked about in our last budget finance committee, looking at what we have in terms of our limited resources. You know, for instance, we have approximately $384,000 in our capital reserve fund, and you start looking at some of the projects we have, obviously we know that's not going to be enough. And I mean, if we were looking at a limited slate of projects, sure, we could look at utilization of fund balance, but we're talking about much bigger projects, and obviously looking at things that are going to save us money down the road. So again, kind of investing in the infrastructure to pay for the infrastructure itself for that. So it definitely appears to be a good program, and we definitely should take a look at it in more detail to see exactly what could we potentially realize by going down this road.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Is there any cost, like, besides that 10%, like, let's say we want to do this, the feasibility, just to see where we're at? How much is that?
So part of the preliminary assessment that we're talking about tonight, there's no cost for what we're talking about today. We're going to come back, we're going to look at the remainder of the buildings. We'll then do a similar report with all the building information. Still no cost at this point. It's not until you get into the procurement process later that any cost would incur. And if you decide to move forward with a program, with a project, there's no upfront cost at that point.
How long is that to do the
Do you want
5, 6 buildings, 6 buildings?
It really depends on who's got to gather the information first.
Seven, eight,
So before we can tell you what we can say, we've got to develop a baseline. So the first thing is getting the utility companies to cooperate with us and provide us with the utility information. Once we have that, then we walk through with engineers, and we probably install those same loggers. So you're looking at probably 8 to 12 weeks before we come back with the results of it, depending, of course, upon how long the utility company takes.
Yeah, I would say typically if we get the data like tomorrow, it's usually less than 8 weeks, and then we have to put our presentation together. So it might not fit into your next board meeting agenda, but between 8 and 12 weeks.
Do you use models to justify, like, the difference between March and
Yes.
September?
Are you saying we business model or something?
No, I mean models to know the difference between the temperature changes between
yes.
this winter, that summer?
We have to account for that on an annual basis, because the weather today is going to be vastly different than it was last March.
So we call it weather normalization. Our engineers take a look at degree days, and they try to create a baseline on a normal winter and a normal summer. We take all that into consideration.
Would I be right then, if you missed that, you pay for it?
Yes, correct. That's correct.
So if their model is off,
It's on you.
For us,
yeah.
you're fine.
Right.
With this program, I think one thing that these gentlemen didn't say is that with this program, we hold all the risk. This removes a substantial amount of risk from the school district. If you were to try to do a project like this on your own, and there was a change order, the district would be responsible. Unlike this program, ABM would be responsible for all the risk. So it removes risk from the district.
Another question?
Well, you must be doing a good job, because 100 years you're still in business. If you had taken less, you wouldn't have been in business
Well, I
today.
appreciate that. The other thing I would say is we're 100% referenceable too, so if there's a client we've been doing business with, every one of them are available, if you had a conversation, you wanted to talk with them, so we even have customers visit our old customer sites, take a walk through, so all that's available.
Our goal eventually down the line, to Mark's point, is for the next gateway to reach out to you and get your perspective on how this process went.
Any other questions from board members? Any questions from the public? Mr. Adams?
I just have one comment, and, you know, as a past board member, and looking at these numbers, you have 4 elementary schools. 3 of the 4 elementary schools have a utility electric bill of about $2,000 a month. Ramsey is sitting over there with $7,000 a month of electric utility. At $7,000 a month, that's $84,000 a year. At $2,000 a month, that's $24,000 a year. $60,000 a year is the number if you make Ramsey look like your other elementary schools. You're not going to get those kind of savings out of the other elementary schools. And, the school district, I'm not sure the school district is going to keep that school for 5 to 15 years. I think the school district needs to know that it's long term. You enter into a long-term plan like this. Just thoughts we could think about. Thank you.
Any other questions?
All right. Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right. We'll allow the mini-thon people to get out of here. Yeah. All right.
Is everybody ready? You ready?
Yep. Neil, did you have a
Yeah, I'd
motion?
like to make a motion to have an executive session.
A motion? Motion and second?
For personnel reasons, sorry.
Do all in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing one, we'll go into executive session. just ended executive session at 8:44. Need a motion to come out?
Motion to come out of second executive session.
Motion second, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, okay. We will continue with the meeting. Section B, bills and financial reports, Mr. Schott.
We will actually be presenting the section B1, B2, and B3 at the Tuesday, March 15th regular board meeting. We just actually downloaded the bank statements today, the first day of the new month, so we're in the process of reconciling and processing check payments.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Section C, items previously tabled. Mrs. Crump.
This item was for the AIU Smart Start program that we tabled last month, so I could gather some answers for some of the questions that you had. I went back to the IU to get some clarification, and on the Smart Start program, the individual must do one-day orientation at the IU. They must do the online courses through the University of Utah, which takes about 3 to 4 weeks, depending upon the person, 2 to 3 weeks. They complete the Act 126 and 31 3-hour training. They are then mandated to interview with one of the administrators in our district and then view an elementary and a secondary. The IU will make sure that all the 168 forms are completed, all of their personnel information is completed, and make sure that they get the emergency permits. Dr. Zeddy did get clarification on there is an option at the second year that that person could opt out of the Smart Start program and then become ours, and we would emergency certify them. And there's no cost for that.
Okay, now, I guess the question I would have is, does the administration believe that this is worth the $200 expense? Would it be, for instance, cost effective for us to just have them enroll in the University of Utah class if that's what they're doing, if they're not offering AIU class?
Because they're going to have to pay their portion too, but if you look at how the contract is set up on any one day when we have a substitute or a teacher out where we don't have a substitute, we pay over $200 in fees to the teachers covering classes.
Oh, no, I'm well aware of that. I'm just saying, is this a good price, or would we be better served doing it in-house for less money, I guess is the question.
We'd have to check with the university to see if we could get the same price for them to take the course that is offered through the Smart Start program.
Okay. But regardless, we found out this is not an annual expense now, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
And there aren't any other programs that offer the same sort of certification?
Not that we're of right now.
Okay. And then whenever we issue an emergency substitute certificate, has that person gone through this training, or how does that work?
I cannot say to what happened before me. For emergency certs that I do, I've only done 2, and those people are actually teachers who have come from, one is from Florida, who's in the process, the other one is coming from Wisconsin. So they were actually certified teachers who do not yet have their Pennsylvania credentials. So we emergency certify them until they get them. But that's the only 2 that I have.
Okay, thank you.
I guess the last question I would have is, are they then certified through the AIU or through Gateway? So meaning, can they go to any district if we pay us $200, or do they stay specific to Gateway?
They stay specific to Gateway. And the same with the emergency cert, when you do it, it ties them to Gateway.
We might want to double check that. I believe if the emergency cert goes through the IU, then any school district that's hired them to sub in that district, they're available for. I may be wrong, but I think we should double check that one, because in my discussion today, that's when I was told if we get the emergency cert through Gateway, then they're exclusive to us.
I think I remember the same thing.
So if that is the case, can we A, then look, is there a way for them to do the training there and get the cert through us, or B, is there a way for them to sign a contract which says they'll stay at Gateway? Again, I just don't want to pay the $200 for everyone else to get free substitutes.
To sign the contract, you'd have to ask Chelsea about.
Okay. Well, yeah, well, let's discover that first, and then we'll see. Okay. Any other questions on AIU Smart Start program? Seeing none, personnel agenda. Trish?
Thank you, Mr. Steubenfort. Item 1, under leave of absences, we have 6 leave of absences presented for you to review. All of the candidates do have all of their medical information in. Under Section 2 for transfers, we list 2 custodians who, under the collective bargaining agreement, have bid on different positions, and so that's notifying them of that. Under 3, for employment, we have a substitute teacher to be used on an emergency basis only, and the reason I clarify that is because it is a retiree, and that is to protect them for their annuitants, because we are going to be using this person just on an emergency basis. We've not been able to find a speech teacher, and so this is a former retiree of ours who is willing to come back into the classroom and help us out. Under Section 4, the employment contract of the business manager for Mr. Schott. In your packets, you'll see a copy of the proposed contract. Section 5, volunteers. And Section 6 is the issuance of the fall supplementals.
Any questions? All right, seeing none, we'll go to Section E, Administrative Resolutions. Dr. Zeddy.
Thank you, Mr. Stubenport. The first item is an overnight excursion to which Mr. Short will discuss.
Yes, we have the Gateway High School Future Business Leaders of America. We have 7 students that have advanced to the finals. This will be in Hershey, Pennsylvania. The cost is $3,679. I've had discussions with Lori Carey. As we've done in the past, she will continue to fundraise, and those efforts will then be given to Mr. Schott to offset the cost of this.
So the cost that you see there is for the group, not for the district. The next issue are facility rentals. The first one is the one you heard about this evening, the mini-thon. And that is, although it says on here the auxiliary gym, I believe after today's presentation and some softening of Mr. Brown, it may be the sports complex. The next one is the Autism Society of Pittsburgh. Bonnie, do you have the attachments for that? Okay, I might have to reference it if there are any questions because I didn't get a copy of that. The Autism Society, I'm assuming, falls under a nonprofit, which is why there is no cost, but I didn't get the paperwork on this one.
Is it any not-for-profit, even not-for-profit out of the district?
There are some, no, that's, I believe, falls under C. Nonprofits outside of the district is a C, but we do have an autism society within the community. I just don't know. Like I said, I don't have the paperwork on this one, so we'll double-check that for you. The next item, 3, 4, 5, 6. Mr. Schott will answer for you. Okay.
Item number 3, administration presenting the annual AIU number 3 Program of Services budget for the 16-17 fiscal year. Total amount of $2,021,185. The district's contribution is estimated to be $76,065 and is depicted in Exhibit B. And the AIU does do a great job in terms of this document, in terms of describing the programs. There's also some pages in here that indicate the various programs specifically geared to what the district utilizes through the AIU. Next item, item number 4, administration presenting the educational services agreement, again with the Allegheny Intermediate Unit for 16-17 fiscal years, depicted in Exhibit C. And the main item with this, again, this is the annual agreement. This does not lock us into solely utilizing them. This agreement includes the terms and conditions related to the services that we choose to purchase, but again, does not obligate our district to purchase those services. So again, we have our options maintained. This is just another provider that we're able to utilize for our special education students. Item number 5 is an item we had discussed at our last Budget and Finance Committee meeting. This is the actual repair of the swimming pool Dectron system through Train. Additional amount of $3,991 is depicted in Exhibit D. This would bring the total cost for the analysis and repairs of $5,991, which again is significantly less than was originally anticipated for this particular project. Item number 6 is the award of bid for the grass cutting and trimming district-wide with Kramer Landscape and Property Management. for the 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20 grass cutting seasons in the corresponding amounts of $1,300 per cut, $1,300 per cut for 17, $1,325 per cut for 18, $1,350 per cut for 19, and $1,375 per cut for 2020. Again, we advertised for bids from vendors. We had a total of 6 vendors actually submit bids to the district, and they were the lowest responsible vendor to meet our specifications.
Mr. Shaw, do you want to do the donations?
Sure. Our first donation is from Phipps Conservatory. Let's Move Pittsburgh Champion Schools grant to Dr. Emily Levine at Cleveland Stewart Junior Elementary School in the amount of $1,000. Our second donation is from the Gateway Education Foundation. It was a supplement to Let's Move Pittsburgh Champion Schools grant, again, to Dr. Emily Levine at Cleveland Stewart Elementary in the amount of $362.60. Next donation is from GAP, Inc. for volunteer hours provided by CSE parents and staff, recipient of Michael Jack, Dr. Cleveland Stewart Elementary School, $100. And in addition, we learned that there were also some clothing items that were also donated through Old Navy, which is one of the entities that the GAP owns. And the final item is a donation from Sinclair Broadcast Group, also known as Fox Sports, for Student Athlete of the Week. Again, as was reported previously, Clayton Nola had won $500 for the athletic account.
Under conferences and conventions, you'll see the trip to Harrisburg for Ms. Crump. We don't normally do these retroactively, but this came up. This was to present the award to Mr. Rigger. The next two are speech teachers who would be attending the speech conference and convention in Pittsburgh. And the final one, Holly Lewis, to attend the Google Apps and Tools to Enhance Student Learning in Pittsburgh as well. Mr. Schott will address the E-rate as well as the consortium vote.
Item number 9 is presenting the E-rate funding and network upgrades. This is the conclusion of the process that Mr. Brown had started, specifically E-rate funding and purchase for network upgrades, including cabling, firewall, switches, and wireless, for the estimated gross amount of $260,000, and also the district's participation in E-rate discount program for 16-17 fiscal year. Note that it's estimated approximately 57% discount for E-rate, so basically taking the $260,000 minus $148,000 relieves approximately $112,000. So again, this would enable the district to participate in that program. And we do have Mr. Brown here if there's any particular questions related to that.
Is this below the number that we were presented in the budget meeting?
The very first budget meeting?
No, the one a week or two ago.
The same numbers.
Same numbers, okay.
Yeah.
That's
And
good.
these
I would say are still the high numbers. Depending on what we decide to do as far as the technology cycle next year, we may only be purchasing a portion of that.
Okay. Thanks.
Item number 10 is the Allegheny County Schools Health Insurance Consortium election of a nominee to serve as schools board trustee for the Eastern Region Schools. The two selections there are Salvatore J. Colella from Plumboro School District, is depicted in Exhibit E, or Michael V. Paradigm from East Allegheny School District, depicted in Exhibit F. So at the meeting on the 15th, the board would individually vote for one of those. The majority selected would be our official vote and submitted to the consortium.
Very good. No questions then?
Yeah, there's no question. Mr. Brown, do you supervise the grass cutting? You're happy with these guys?
I'm still checking the references, but at this point, I don't see anything to show why not.
Okay. And the last thing is, on number 10, does anybody on the board or anywhere know these two folks? I'd like to see if somebody knows them. It would kind of get me thinking about who we should go.
I personally have did some checking. I don't, should we say it now?
Well,
or
we
do
have
we
to
hold
vote
it?
next time, so this
Okay.
is kind of when we discuss it, I think.
Well, I get some,
you can talk.
there's some negative comments on a person should
Correct.
be out,
Yeah.
wouldn't out in the open.
Well, is there someone that you would recommend?
I would recommend Michael Paradine.
From East Allegheny.
And may I ask why?
I didn't know if Mary Beth said something. Checking into him, he did more for students, school district, than the other gentleman that I could see with his background. I mean, not with the exhibit, I didn't look at the exhibit, but looking at the actual person himself.
Very good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else, Neil?
Nope.
Okay. Anybody else have anything? Nope. Okay, we will move on to section F. Do we have any resolutions presented by board members? Go ahead.
I would like to make a motion that the Gateway School Board investigate possible school district involvement with regional and national efforts to celebrate the 60th anniversary of the adoption of the national motto, "In God We Trust." And I've been doing some background research on this. This is the 60th year that this motto has been in use. There are many events that are going on in school districts and municipalities, state and nationwide. We've got a 4th of July parade coming up. We've got some students who are looking for some community-related projects. This might be a good one, worth investigating, so we could coordinate this 60th anniversary celebration with some of the students' historical and civic activities. So my resolution, I'll read it again, the Gateway School Board will investigate the possible school district involvement with regional and national efforts to celebrate the 60th anniversary of the adoption of the national motto, "In God We Trust."
Are you looking for a second?
Well,
It's not an action item.
it's not an action item.
The motion would be to add it to the agenda for
Exactly.
2 weeks from today, so there is a motion on the floor.
I'll second it.
There's a motion, there's a second. Open any questions or comments?
Yeah, I comment.
Go ahead.
Actually, I'm good friends with State Representative who sponsored this In God We Trust bill to try to get it put up in the school districts on display. His name is Rick Saccone, and I've also talked to some attorneys about the legality, and it's an open and shut case. There's no problem legally with us displaying it because it's our national motto, and it's a historical slogan. So if anyone is concerned about putting that up for religious reasons, I'm sure Chelsea can check into that for us, but from the investigation I've done, it's not a problem that way, and I would support that, John.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, we will do a roll call then to add it onto the agenda.
You can do a roll call.
Just to get a feel for
Roll call?
Yeah.
Okay, Mrs. Cerrucci?
Aye.
Mr. Lapsevich?
Aye.
Mr. Nara?
Aye.
Mr. O'Donnell? Mr. Ritter?
Aye.
Mr. Stubenbord?
Aye.
Mrs. Warning?
Aye.
Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mrs. Byrne?
Aye.
Very good. Any other resolutions presented by board members? Seeing none, we will now move on to comments from residents on non-agenda items. And we will start with Bob Elms, who signed up beforehand. Just please make sure you sign in there, make it easier for Bonnie.
Bob Elms, 1303 Foxborough Drive. Dr. Zeddy was hired to put Gateway back on a positive academic achievement, a path that would enable and encourage every student to do their very best. I was on the board when the board hired Dr. Zeddy, and I observed her performance for the past 3 years. Dr. Zeddy inherited a school district where trust and quality education were at the bottom of the to-do list. Dr. Zeddy formulated and articulated a plan for district growth to the board and to the community through a series of 2013 vision meetings. Dr. Zeddy set up a 3-year technology upgrade plan and worked with the Malcolm Baldridge Group to have a Gateway team, including
board members visit Montgomery County schools, hoping to incorporate a number of efficiency ideas used to reduce district costs. Change takes time and planning. Dr. Zeddy served on the boards of the Chamber of Commerce, the Junior Achievement of Western Pennsylvania, and became an active member of the Rotary. In these positions, she could help bring funding and educational opportunities to our students. She partnered with the YMCA, the public library, local hospitals, and the Minerva Ministerium to bring real-life experiences to our students. Dr. Zeddy tried to effectively communicate to the board with weekly documentation of the plans, progress, problems, and funding opportunities within the district. She also tried to connect with the community, with the mayor, with monthly meetings with the FTO, PTO representatives, and with televised monthly meetings with the mayor and community members. Dr. Zeddy has published a yearly State of the District report made available to board members and the community. A Gateway team, including board members, visit Montgomery County schools, hoping to incorporate a number of efficiency ideas used to reduce district costs. Change takes time and planning. Dr. Zeddy served on the boards of the Chamber of Commerce, the Junior Achievement of Western Pennsylvania, and became an active member of the Rotary. In these positions, she could help bring funding and educational opportunities to our students. She partnered with the YMCA, the public library, local hospitals, and the Minerva Ministerium to bring real-life experiences to our students. Dr. Zeddy tried to effectively communicate to the board with weekly documentation of the plans, progress, problems, and funding opportunities within the district. She also tried to connect with the community, with the mayor, with monthly meetings with the FTO, PTO representatives, and with televised monthly meetings with the mayor and community members. Dr. Zeddy has published a yearly State of the District report made available to board members and the community. In the 2013-14 State of the District, Dr. Zeddy summarized the growth plan's goals and its progress. The plan involved educating the whole child and every child in order to grow Gateway into a blue ribbon quality school district. I never heard any board member voice disagreements with this document. More than 40% of the students at Gateway receive free or reduced cost lunches. Students cannot learn if they are hungry. Dr. Zeddy implemented a sanitary and safe sharing table in all district cafeterias. She created the Backpack to Go program so that food would be available on weekends to students caught by the effects of poverty. In 2011, the district purchased the rights to use the Sbss anti-bullying program as part of a statewide initiative. When Dr. Zeddy investigated the Sbss program progress in 2013, the administration learned that it had been neglected, a legacy of the prior administration. Under Dr. Zeddy's leadership, the anti-bullying program was put back on course and implemented with fidelity. The school board is a 10-member team that includes the superintendent. Major positive achievements can only happen when the elected board members support and work with the superintendent. The duty of the elected members is to make policies, set district goals, and be advocates for the students and residents. The board leadership should not micromanage day-to-day district operations. A piece of advice given to me was this: when board members make decisions, ask yourself this question: will the decision benefit students or adults? Last August, I was opposed to McGill School Board giving Dr. Zeddy a letter to not renew her contract. I am disappointed to see the new school board publicly vote to not renew Dr. Zeddy's contract. To do that almost a year before it's necessary is a poor decision. The message sent is the Gateway School Board is hard on good superintendents. Not one of the seated school board members has the qualifications to run a school board or a school district. The superintendent's job is to manage the day-to-day business of the district, following the board's policies and goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Elms. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in public? Seeing none? We do have one? Okay, that's... I don't think you signed up previously, but you're more than welcome if you could just sign up there.
I'm here to talk about the One Book, One Community program.
If you could just say your name and your address.
I'm Mark Hudson. I'm the head of adult services at the Monroeville Public Library, and I'm here to talk about the One Book, Our Community program. And oh yes, yeah, we've distributed the books. This is the book that the Monroeville Interfaith Ministerium and the Monroeville Public Library and Mon Valley Circles together are co-sponsoring a community-wide readership. And we're inviting people from all walks of life to read and discuss the important issues raised by this book about poverty and inequality. This is a book that was published around, I believe, 2002, 2003. But the issue, it's been revised since then, and the issues are still quite salient. It was updated. There's a new introduction, I think, after the 2007-2008 financial crisis. Millions of Americans work for poverty-level wages. So one day, journalist Barbara Ehrenreich decided to join them. She was inspired in part by the rhetoric surrounding the welfare reform of the 1990s, which promised that any job is the ticket to a better life, but how can anyone survive, let alone prosper on minimum wage? To find out, Ehrenreich moved from Florida to move to Minnesota, taking the cheapest lodgings available and accepting any job she was offered. She worked as a waitress, a hotel maid, a cleaning woman, a nursing home aide, and a Walmart sales clerk. So our goal is to engage the community in discussing the issues of poverty and inequality as they affect our neighbors and as illuminated by this book. And our tagline is, what if the entire community read the same book at the same time? So we're inviting everyone in Monroeville and Pitcairn to read this book and come to a series of book discussions. We have to date 15 book discussions and 3, 4, maybe 5 programs, special events at the library where we'll have speakers and panels talking about the issues raised by the book, issues about relating to poverty, inequality, minimum wage work, and what we can do to change things. And it started in February and it's running through May. All events are free and open to the public. We've distributed copies of the book to all of you. If anyone else in the room would like a copy, let me know. I have a few extras.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very good. Would anyone else from the public like to speak? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to reports, and we'll start with Dr. Zeddy.
Thank you, Mr. Stubenboard. As you know, we celebrate our student and staff success during our next meeting, but it is being celebrated for the past year through this year's State of the District, which through a lot of hard work and sweat of Mrs. Anella, we were able to finally finish and publish. It is available on the website, and it is about 40-some pages this time. So if you get a chance, read through. Each of the board members have a hard copy, again, because Kara and I tried to crank this out amidst everything else that was going on. If you find some typos or some errors, give us a call. It's electronic. We can fix them. We did add a section on a brief history of Gateway this time, and we pulled the information from the archives that we have, so they're not really... we can't really attest to the accuracy of some of the documents we used. We also used the book, Remembering Monroeville from Frontier to Boomtown, so some of the information from that book is in here as well. But on page 3 and 4, it talks a little bit about Patton Township before this became Monroeville, about the one-room schoolhouses and where they were located, all the way up through today. So if you get a chance, read through. If you have some corrections or ideas for us to include, we can make some changes. As I said, it's electronic, but it does give you some of the data and some of the programs that are happening in the Gateway School District over the past year and that continue to happen today. That's all I have for today.
Thank you, Dr. Zeddy. Mr. Short?
Nothing at this time.
Very good. Mr. Schott?
First of all, I'd like to announce the next Budget and Finance Committee meeting will be on Wednesday, March 30th at 7 p.m. in the Gateway High School LGI. Again, that is Wednesday, March 30th at 7 p.m. in the Gateway High School LGI. Also, unfortunately, 245 days without a complete state budget. One item I did run across, and this was actually part of a Post-Gazette article, actually, after our last Budget and Finance Committee meeting we had. I just want to just read this to you, just to give an indication in terms of what's going on at the Commonwealth. When budget hearings began on Monday, February 22nd, the chairman of the Senate Appropriations Committee set a ground rule. Members could ask one round of questions on the unfinished Pennsylvania state budget, but then they should move on to Governor Tom Wolf's proposal for 16-17 budget. That really struck me when I read that they should be working on solving 15-16 first instead of moving on to 16-17. So just very unfortunate. I really thought that we were going to see some progress, wrap up 15-16, and let's move on to that. But evidently, that's not happening. Thank you. That's all I have this evening.
Thank you, Paul. Mrs. Crum?
Nothing at this time, thank you.
All right, we'll go on to board reports. Mr. Williams?
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ritter?
Yes, 8 things. Did our letter go out to the state representatives, letting them know that we were interested in them resolving the budget?
The final draft, I believe, is being revised currently. So that will be sent out, yes.
Thank you very kindly. Next, want to report that the brush was successfully cleared at the Gateway Middle School. Special thanks go out to Joe Burgess and Len Young for their expertise in horticulture and arboring. Is that a word? Arboring. So we went through all the hoops, got all the approvals. The community really loves it. The folks were walking around happily, not slipping or sliding, and it's beginning to look better. However, I made a set of recommendations based on the feedback from the experts as to how to keep that brush from, sneaking up over the fence again over the next couple of years. So we can look into that some of the time. Number 2, the national motto. Number 3, the national motto. Been doing a bunch of investigating work on this, and I'll be happy to sort of roll out some of the brainstormed ideas that we and other people have had during the next meeting. Number 3, the PSBA ESSA examination team. That's the Pennsylvania State Board Association's Every Student Succeeds Act examination team was built. I volunteered for it, didn't get on the team. However, I'd like to ask this team right here, would we like to collect some feedback and offer it to that small set of team members so that they can chew on the notions, the ideas that we have regarding ESSA? Just put it on the back burner. If we would, we can assemble a small team, build that list, and send it to them to think about. Number 5. The Education and Policy Leadership's Regional State Budget Education Policy Forum was held on February 25th. It will be broadcast on the Pennsylvania Cable Network TV. The panel was packed with Governor Wolf accolades, so it wasn't in my opinion, a very well balanced discussion. So, and the last one, the budget update, as Paul said, this is day 224 of the Pennsylvania State Budget impasse. So we're still stuck. That's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Ritter. Mrs. Cerrucci?
I don't have anything.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Warning?
2 things. I just want to say a very special thank you to Nelson Crow, Christy Faulkner, Amanda Stravers, and Jamie Metz for the work that they put into opening the teachers' treasures at Monside Middle for 2 years. It has closed and will be reopening, but the 4 of them were consistently there for the entire 2 years that they were operational. And thank you again for going above and beyond the call of duty, as you always do. And another thing, I had a couple phone calls that Mr. Short's going to be looking into about Cleveland Stewart. I guess the buses were picking the kids up and leaving around 3:35. And I don't think the time of school is ending at that time, so he said he will check into it. So anybody out there listening, he's the man to go to. It's on his shoulders. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lapsovich?
The only thing I got to say is, keep up the good work to our school directors. That's it.
Thank you, George. Mrs. Byrne?
Bonnie, I would like to advertise for a curriculum meeting on March 17th at 6 o'clock. In this meeting, we'll just go over the proposed changes to the curriculum for next year, and then we'll host another curriculum meeting in April. Would also like to say thank you to Marcy Crow, Amanda Stravers, Christy Bauer, and Jamie Metz for their dedication in opening and maintaining Teachers' Treasures for 2 years. I would also appreciate future donations from teachers and staff to Teachers' Treasures, which will reopen starting tomorrow, March 2nd. And it will be open from 6 to 8:30 and will be open the first and third Wednesdays of every month. I'd also like to say great job to Matt Sakunas and his students for competing at the Pittsburgh Regional Sea Perch Competition at CMU. This was Gateway's first year competing, and they were invited to compete nationally. And also thank you to the library and the One Book, One Community program for this book, Nickel and Dime. I look forward to reading it. And that's all I have this evening.
Thank you, Stephanie. Mr. Adall?
Nothing at this time, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Newell?
Just one real quick thing. I just want to thank everybody, the time and the energy and the effort that everybody puts in this district, from the board all the way down to everybody throughout the entire district. It doesn't go unnoticed, and I personally really appreciate all of the energy and effort that is put in, and I think that that's what makes us a great community, and we should all feel proud of Gateway. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Newell. I don't have much here. Just wanted to reiterate, March 30th at 7 o'clock will be our third budget and finance meeting. It is my goal that we can have a balanced budget probably for the first time in 12 to 14 years. And I think by switching to zero-based budgeting, we're definitely much closer than we have been ever this time previously. So I did have a question for you, Stephanie. The Teachers' Treasures, where could people drop off clothes? Because I actually have suits I was going to drop off to Goodwill, but I'll bring them here.
Oh, thank you. Northside Middle School. And if you drop them off at the office, I think they'll transport them to the Teachers' Treasures room for me, and then I'll sort them later.
Very good, thank you. And also just wanted to thank George, Bob Brown, whoever else was involved identifying the dehumidifier in the swimming pool and taking care of that. So very inexpensive fix to solve something that could have been disastrous and very expensive. So thank you for everyone involved there. And that is all I have for this evening. Do we have a motion for adjournment?
Second.
Motion, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion's adjourned.